The Bill of Rights was ratified by the United States in 1791. More important, the Eighth Amendment.
Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted.
The Eighth Amendment is to protect people from a tyrannical government.
35% of the murder victims that were killed in 2008 were killed at the hands of people they knew, intimate partners. He and his wife were not getting along, so he sought her out. He went to the business where she worked, a video store, walked inside. He had a bottle full of gasoline. He came up to her and he poured that gasoline over her head and he set her on fire. Now Hargrave is serving life in prison for the assault, setting his wife on fire.
If they can do the crime, they need to be punished. They don't need to be taken care of and given an education and living a life sentence in jail when they've killed somebody, or even worse. And it costs a lot of taxpayers a lot of money.
The least painful and the most humane.
I think a firing squad is pretty quick and painless.
Standing at an enclosure of 20 feet away, 5 shooters are armed with .30 caliber rifles, loaded with single rounds. One of the shooters is given blank rounds. Each of the shooter aims his rifle through a slot in the canvas and fires at the inmate. The prisoner dies as a result of blood loss caused by a rupture in the heart, large blood vessel, or tearing of the lungs. The person shot loses consciousness when shock causes a fall in the supply of blood to the brain. If the shooter misses the heart by accident or intentionally, the prisoner bleeds to death slowly.
I think hanging is too outdated.
Immediately before the execution, the prisoner's hands and legs are secured. He or she is blindfolded, and the noose is placed around the neck, with the knot behind the left ear. The execution takes place when a trapdoor is opened and the prisoner falls through. The prisoner's weight should cause a rapid fracture dislocation of the neck. For the execution by electric chair, the person is usually shaved and strapped to a chair with belts that cross his chest, groin, legs, and arms. A metal skull-cap-shaped electrode is attached to the scalp and forehead over a sponge moistened with saline. The sponge must not be too wet, or the saline short-circuits the electric current, and not too dry, as it would then act as a very high resistance to electricity. The prisoner is then blindfolded. After the execution team has withdrawn to the observation room, the warden signals the executioner, who pulls a handle to connect the power supply. A jolt between 500 and 2,000 volts, which lasts for about 30 seconds, is given. The current surges and is turned off, at which the body is seen to relax. The doctors wait a few seconds for the body to cool down, and then check to see if the inmate's heart is still beating. If it is, another jolt is applied. This process continues until the prisoner is dead. For execution by this method, the condemned person is strapped to a chair in an airtight chamber. Below the chair rests a pail of sulfuric acid. A long stethoscope is typically affixed to the inmate so that the doctor outside the chamber can pronounce death. Once everyone has left the chamber, the room is sealed. The warden gives a signal to the executioner, who flicks a lever and releases crystals of sodium cyanide into the pail. This causes a chemical reaction that releases hydrogen cyanide gas. The prisoner is instructed to breathe deeply to speed up the process. The inmate does not lose consciousness immediately. At first, there is evidence of extreme horror, pain, and struggling. The eyes pop, the skin turns purple, and the victim begins to drool. After that, the inmate dies. When lethal injection, or what we believe to be as the most humane death penalty, is used, the condemned person is usually bound to a gurney, and a member of the execution team positions several heart monitors on the skin. 2 needles, one as backup, are inserted into usable veins, usually in the inmate's arms. Long tubes connect needles through a hole in a cement block wall to several intravenous drips. First, a harmless saline solution is started immediately. Then at warden's signal, a curtain is raised exposing the inmate to witnesses in an adjoining room. Then the inmate is injected with sodium thipental, an anesthetic which puts the inmate to sleep. Next flows Pavilon, which paralyzes the entire muscle system and stops the inmate's breathing. Finally, the flow of potassium chloride stops the heart. Death results from an anesthetic overdose and respiratory and cardiac arrest, while the condemned person is unconscious.
The Eighth Amendment is important to me because it protects our society from convicts running loose on the streets after murdering someone, and all they have to do is pay bail and they're free.
Your decisions are between A. A firing squad, B. Hanging, C. Electric chair, D. Gas chamber, and E. Lethal injection. Thanks for watching. Cruel or fair?